Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm counting 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, 7. We got E in here.
7. Oh.
The Planning and Zoning Board is an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decision on all items. Items on today's agenda will be heard by the board on August 6th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Each applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their requests, and each person speaking up in opposition who has questions or concerns will have 5 minutes to speak. When a motion ends in any kind of split vote, a roll call vote may be called to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn on their microphone so your voice is on the record. Do we have approval for the Planning and Zoning minutes for June 15th?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hodgers.
Second.
Second by Joe Buchanan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I'm going to nominate Mr. Hodgers. I have an emergency to do for work at 3:15, so I'm going to nominate Mr. Hodgers to take over as chair. Do we have any opposed to that? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, I'm going to vacate the chair seat, and Mr. Hodgers, please.
All right. Staff, item number 1.
H1 is Theodore Goodnow requests a change of zoning classification from AU to RU-1-9. It's located in District 1. It's on the east side of Hammock Road.
All right. Will the applicant come up?
Thank you, Chairman Hodgers, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Kim Rozenka. I am with the law firm of Cantwell and Goldman in Cocoa Village. I'm here representing Mr. Giannone, who is the contract purchaser for Mr. Goodnow. I have a new BDP. I know there was one in your packet. I've stricken just one item out of it. It's just easier to send you a new one than to try to explain it to you. And also, too, I have another diagram so you know what this is next to. It was a little confusing. I had given you a site plan last month, and it was confusing as to where that site plan was in relation to this property. So just a moment, please.
Thank you.
As you'll recall, we were here last month. You approved a change to the future land use that will allow this rezoning to be possible on the west side of Hammock Road. This is a split parcel with almost 5 acres on the east side of Hammock Road and 26 plus acres on the other side of Hammock Road. It's a 31.43 total property. We're asking the entire parcel be rezoned from AU to RU-19 with a binding development plan. We went through all of the zoning, and I had given you a diagram last month that showed what the zoning was nearby and what the different sizes of the zoning are. You've got TR2 to the north of the parcel on the east side. It's a 0.5, those are 0.5 acres. You got 1 acre lots to the west of the west parcel. Then you have a PUD in the city to the south of the parcel on the west side. And then you have some smaller lots on the south side adjacent to Hammock Road. What I have provided you today, and as you may recall, there were some concerns about what was being built, was there enough buffering and things like that. By many of you at P&Z. That's why this was tabled, so I could meet with my client, Mr. Giannone, who was stuck down in Vero Beach, and apologizes for not being here. So what I have provided to you, the yellow highlighted area is the property that's under consideration for rezoning. And then the property to the south is the new PUD that was rezoned in Titusville last year. And those are 134 units, minimum 6,000 square foot. And that just shows you what's going to be, that was the most recent rezoning in the area. The binding development plan, which was in your packet, and then just this one says 7620 on the top. Paragraph 2 on the first page going into the second page specifies that this will be hooked up to water and sewer. The total maximum density for the project would be 62 units. That includes both sides of the property. D, the east side of Hammock Lot will be no more than 5 1/2-acre lots, and that's on almost 5 acres. And that the property can be transferred to the other side. There was an issue of whether transfer of density rights was an issue here. And working with staff, they said that doesn't really apply here because of the zoning and the future land use and a variety of other reasons. So this will be one subdivision with Hammock Road in the middle of it, and there are several examples of that throughout the county that is possible. We'll have to work with staff on that. So that's just saying that there can be 62 units, but there will be no more than 5 on the west parcel, if any at all. We're not sure that there will be. There's some idea that Mr. Giannone wants to put the maybe amenities, maybe stormwater on that side, and would direct bore under Hammock Road. Then E, the minimum lot size shall be 9,000 square feet. And again, this was part due because of the way the property has to be developed with the buffers, and then because of the consistency of the PUD to the south. There shall be a 25-foot buffer on the west property line of the west 26-acre parcel, and then there shall be a 25-foot buffer on the north parcel line of the east parcel, and that was to account for the homes that are on the north side of the west parcel. I did that backwards. No one even called me on that. I had the east and the west backwards. I'm so sorry. I did that a lot when I was here last time. So where it says east, it should say west. And gosh, I just noticed that. So on the east parcel, the lots to the north will be buffered by a 25-foot buffer in addition to other buffers. And then on the west parcel, yours was right? No, I'm talking about the diagram, the yellow. I had the yellow wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, no, it's right in the binding development plan. My diagram is wrong. The smaller parcel is the east parcel, and the larger parcel is the west parcel. And the buffer will be 25 foot on the north of the east parcel and 25 feet on the west of the west parcel. And that's what the binding development plan states. If anyone has any questions, or if you want me to go through the presentation I went through last week or last month, I can do that. I know you were all here. I'm not sure if Mr. Waltz was here or not. Okay.
Kim, I just noticed what you handed out had one thing blacked out versus what we got in our packet.
Right, and that's what's to be stricken. There was some confusion as to what that meant. And the concern was to make sure there was the 25-foot buffer to the north in the east parcel, because those houses were closer to any proposed development than those were on the west side of the west parcel.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question related to that.
Yes, sir.
The same wording occurs just a little bit earlier in that paragraph.
Yes.
Did you intend to strike that same wording out?
We
both
did
places?
not. No, we only intended to strike it on the bottom. If you need to, because if you look at the houses on the west of the west parcel, most of them are pretty far back. So it wasn't raised to us that was a substantial issue. When you look at the property on the east parcel to the north, they are right on the property line. So that was the buffer. If that would make you more comfortable, then we could certainly do that if that's what you intended.
The other question I had was, when you say buffer, you didn't put in the words landscape buffer, just simply buffer. So what you intend to have
There's likely going to be a fence, but we're going to do whatever the code requires, this landscape buffer. This is just to make sure that there is a larger buffer than necessarily would be.
I mean, were
under the
you,
straight zoning
were you
code.
intending that buffer to be open space? Like grass?
Yeah, well, there will be a fence. There will be trees that will have to be put in because that's required by the landscape buffer. I don't remember what the landscape buffer will require.
Well, my point was landscape buffer is not mentioned here. It just simply says buffer.
Right, well, we'll have to apply whatever the county code requires.
And it'd be more comfortable if you had landscape buffer. That would say, yeah, you're going to have some kind of,
Well, the county will
Vegetation.
require that. I don't know off the top of my head. Jeffrey, do you know what the landscape buffer's requirement is, the subdivision buffer?
Maybe I can help.
I can,
I might have I'm going to kind of interject because just so, I guess on the record, I spoke to Kim about this on the phone because I had concerns at the last meeting, and so she kind of wanted to get my thoughts on what my concerns were. And it maybe needs to be a little bit more specific so it relates to the buffer requirement. In a subdivision in Brevard County, you're required to have a 15-foot buffer around the entire property that is you can't disturb it. It's an undisturbed vegetative buffer. So my thought was, on the east side is that north 25 feet, there's already a bunch of existing vegetation that pretty much creates this wall, this nice visual existing, established buffer. So we wanted to keep that because, like Mr. Zanker said, those houses are really close to that property. On the west side, there's really nothing there. It's all cleared. So it would be, so in lieu of it being a 15-foot undisturbed natural vegetative buffer, it would be 25-foot on the west side of the west parcel, the north side of the east parcel, so that it's just whatever's there is there. If they want to plant in it, they can, but they have to preserve it, what's there. So because it existed on the east parcel, we wanted to maintain that so they can't take it out because it's a nice existing natural buffer. So the language maybe could be a little bit clarified that it's whatever that perimeter buffer is, the requirements of that perimeter buffer would extend from 15 to 25 on those two areas of the site.
I was concerned that I noticed at least one house has a swimming pool in their backyard on those 1 acre lots. And so to me, that would be nice if the people who are moving into the new place, weren't right up against and watching people swimming in their private pool. You mentioned a fence. What size and kind?
I know he intends to put a fence around it. I assume it's going to be a wooden, I don't know, though. I mean, it'll be whatever the code requires, because he does want to, I know he's putting a fence on the other property to the south as well.
I mean, if it were an opaque fence, then that would,
Yeah, so it would
be
definitely be opaque. I
but
don't
if
know
this
if
is going to
it's,
be a chain link fence, well,
no, it won't be chain link. It would,
that wouldn't do much
it would
good.
be prefabricated or wooden, I'm quite sure. I don't think it's going to be a masonry wall, but I know he intends to put a fence there.
Okay,
If you wanted an opaque buffer to put in here, we could do that.
that would be nice.
Okay.
Yes.
So we could put, and we could add,
Well,
what?
maybe, I don't know how if opaque, but maybe how many different types, do you have, A, B, and C type buffers? We could ask for one of those, so at
Well-
least the staff would know what that means.
That's what I think they
Because
were
an
going to
opaque
say.
buffer doesn't mean, I don't think there's a definition of opaque buffer, is there?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Jean Allen with Natural Resources and Landscaping, and the landscaping code doesn't require any kind of vegetative buffer between residential and residential use, just so you know. So if you did want it to say vegetative, that would probably be important. And then, what was the question specifically just now?
Whether it
Oh.
be opaque or like a type A, B, or C that we could,
Okay, well, if it's 25 feet wide, we could call it a type A, but the type A is usually just 20 feet, and the type B is 15 feet. So type A would get you a tree every 25 feet, a large shrub every 4 feet on center, and a small shrub every 3 feet on center. So type A would be the closest, and we just make it 25 feet.
What is type A required for usually between commercial and residential?
It'd be
Incompatible.
pretty steep. Maybe a B would be a little bit less,
Well, B is 15, the only difference
well,
is
except for the width,
depth.
but I mean, the planting spacing is
The B is the same.
the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
the only difference is the width. Type B is 15 feet and type A is 20 feet, but they both have the same requirement of shrubs and trees per linear feet. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we could say a type A buffer or an opaque 6-foot fence, one or the other.
Opaque 6-foot fence, because you're going to be planting, they're going to have to plant trees anyhow by the zoning code, as we all know that. I mean,
Understood, yeah.
So, but
we
I know
could say
you-
one or the other, or whichever one you prefer.
Opaque 6-foot fence would be.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just speak, just for clarification, you want the opaque type A buffer on the western portion of the western parcel, and then the north, along the north, on the eastern portion of the property.
No, the buffer on the east parcel, the north part of the east parcel, would just be that undisturbed, instead of a 15-foot perimeter buffer, it'd be 25 along that north line. So it would just be undisturbed, because it's already got the vegetation in there. So we wouldn't go and make them go plant additional.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
Right.
that staff understands what you're asking
Okay,
for.
and then I think on the west, if I heard Ron correctly, just a 6-foot opaque fence with a 25-foot
On the-
undisturbed buffer
On the western border
on the western border of
of
the
the
western
western
line.
parcel.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yes, another question related, you don't show a site plan or any kind of proposed, but you do say that the lots will be 9,000. It would be, with those 1-acre lots, it would certainly be a lot nicer if the lots along that western border were larger lots to make them more compatible with the 1-acre lots they back up to. Is there any way that that can be accomplished?
I am, no, I spoke to Mr. Genoni, and the 9,000 feet was all he could commit to because he hasn't done the engineering yet. He can't commit to that at this point because he doesn't know what he can build.
All right, any other questions? We'll open it up for anybody that's either for or against this project. Are there anybody in the audience here, or are we going outside? Staff? Are people outside waiting to come in for this, or?
No, these are, we've done it by item, so are you here for item number 1, ma'am? Okay.
Okay, please come up. State your name and address for the record, please.
Terry LaPlante, 4052, Melbourne, Florida, Friar Tuck Lane, Melbourne, Florida. I urge you to vote against the rezoning due to the proximity of the lagoon and the railway that leads to the Kennedy Space Center. I urge you to, it's an error to believe that as long as the developer hooks up to water and sewer, there's not an issue with polluting the lagoon. I urge you to take a close look at the site development plan for Phase 1 and see what is being done to protect the lagoon. What I see is a high-density development with retention ponds, perhaps zero lot lines, clear cutting, and lots of impervious surface. I fail to see that the developer is taking sufficient action to protect the Indian River Lagoon. The latest studies have shown that retention ponds, once believed to reduce nutrient load by 80%, are in fact showing nutrient load reduction of 50%. Rain ponds and bioswales are two alternatives to retention ponds being used in low-impact development. Is the developer willing to use a native land cover rather than sod and turf grass? Turf grass requires fertilizers and pesticides which end up in the lagoon along with some of the sod. Is the developer willing to leave existing trees where possible? Leaving the natural habitat and trees would help considerably with stormwater management and pollution control. Is the developer planning to landscape? You just spoke about that. I will have to say a lot of the land, especially on the east side, on that north side, is pepper trees. It's an invasive species, so it'd be great if the developer took them out and put something in that would protect the lagoon. Is the developer willing to plant all native Florida native plants which require little water or fertilizer to thrive? 1,000 Friends of Florida announced last week that Governor DeSantis signed into law House Bill 1091 and Senate Bill 1450, which makes numerous and often significant increases to penalties for violating Florida's environmental laws. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection has mandated that since the North Indian River Lagoon is impaired water that does not currently meet state water quality standards, new developments in the basin cannot increase nutrient loads to the lagoon, per the Florida DEP. The DEP indicates local governments must be proactive in controlling loads from future growth. Stormwater management systems designed to mimic natural areas can be integrated into community, street, building, and site developments to reduce the damaging effects of urbanization on rivers and streams and relieve pressures on combined sewer and stormwater systems. Additionally, I also urge you to comply with Comprehensive Plan Administrative Policy Number 7. My second reason to urge you to reconsider your plans for this development is these homes are being built dangerously close to the railroad leading to the Kennedy Space Center and to the Canaveral Air Force Station. This is located at the end of Parish Road. The Space Center and Port Canaveral have growing needs for LNG, liquefied natural gas, for their operations. The Department of Energy authorized American LNG to export up to 600,000 metric tons of LNG from the Titusville LNG facility currently being permitted to be built near the Space Coast Regional Airport. The U.S. Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration published the rule last week allowing for railroad shipments of the flammable and odorless liquid known as LNG. Thus, we have the potential hazard of lots of trains transporting a hazardous material near a newly built community. Does it make sense to approve the zoning change for these parcels of land, knowing you are putting people in harm's way? These homes will be too close to the railway. The future value of these homes would be substantially devalued once the plan for shipping LNG through the area comes to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak for or against? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm David Montgomery, 1310 Connect Road in Palm Bay. I'm a retired engineer, and I've sat through the Brooks Landing 1 meetings in Titusville. And one thing I was concerned about there is that the apparent stormwater runoff doesn't seem adequate for the area that low-lying properties are built in. And one of the local citizens pointed that out, that the only drainage along there for overflow and severe storm events would be JJ Road. This property also similarly has stormwater challenges. It's not clear how high-density housing development could retain stormwater on the property without shunting it over to the Indian River several times a year when we have 2 or 3 inch rainfalls like we did last Saturday night. I noted in the I didn't have much time to look at this, but the last meeting was pointed out that 60-some lots would be probably a very high density in that property size, and going down to, say, something like 47 or such would provide more space for percolation of groundwater, retention ponds, and retention of water on property. Unless the developer could show how they can retain water on property, there's going to be several events per year that are going to shunt water off the property and presumably all the way to the lagoon, which is 850 feet from the edge of the property. So unless they can determine that stormwater runoff won't be an issue, I'm concerned about the local neighbors and the stormwater flow into the Indian River Lagoon from the development, which currently isn't isn't, there's no conceptual plan for this property. I'm not sure how stormwater can be retained. Matter of fact, it's partly in floodplain as identified by FEMA. So that's my objection to the property. It's too high density and without identifying how stormwater can be controlled on the property without affecting the surrounding homes and the Indian River Lagoon with stormwater runoff. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing none, I'll ask the applicant to come back up and have a rebuttal.
Briefly. Again, Kim Rosenka on behalf of the owner and developer. The land is already cleared pretty much on the west and to some extent on the east. This is old Grove land, as we discussed last time, and so drainage from Grove land is not the best. This will actually increase drainage. This landscape code will be met, the requirements of the county. As to Administrative Policy 7, that actually deals with drainage problems on surrounding properties. Again, the Land Development Code requires that all drainage be retained, pre-development, post-development, and this will actually increase the ability to maintain runoff because it doesn't maintain it from old orange groves. I don't believe this is considered high density. Generally speaking, it's 2 units to the acre. There's no concept plan because that's not required at zoning. It's whether or not this zoning use is compatible with the surrounding zoning use. The engineering hasn't been done, so we still have to go through site plan. It's not a PUD like Brooks Landing 1 was that's on your drawing. That had to be fully engineered, site plan, drainage, everything at that time. And then just to remind you, to the south of this property on the western parcel is TR1 zoning, which is 75,000 foot square lots. So 9,000 square foot lots is not incompatible with what's allowed to the south. And again, this is a request for zoning from AU to RU19 with the binding development plan as amended to add the 6-foot opaque fence as we discussed. With that, I'd ask that you approve the rezoning with the binding development plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, can I make a comment about my visit to the property?
Absolutely.
Last week I visited and I took about 30 pictures and did a personal observation of it. Our topographs and aerials and maps and everything are very definitive. But when you see it with your own eyes, you get a little different opinion sometimes about the conditions you see in the aerials. First of all, the orchards are pretty well gone. The vegetation, there's not much there. So any development there would help absorb more moisture, in my opinion, from what I saw. The drainage around that, the stormwater drainage starts on the north side on Parish Road and goes a length about 500 feet. If you drove in your car would just about disappear. When you come on the east side or the west side of Hammock Road, come down about 700 feet to about 1945 on Hammock Road. It's still drainage. Then it goes underground at the entrance of 1930 Hammock Road. So then it stays underground apparently and resurfaces down with a sewer lid about 1904. So somewhere in that, there's a lot of water going somewhere and being captured. So that's drained stormwater. So I think what the developer is doing here may just improve the saturation and the absorption of rainwater and stormwater and drainage water. The other thing I noticed about the continuity in a mile square area, and I drove all around it for several minutes, is TR1 and 4, and on the west side of W, the houses are so far over near Brady Grove Drive that they're not going to really be impacted by this development because it's hundreds of feet away from that border on the west side. So putting the border in there, as you're suggesting, everybody's suggesting, will help it. But I don't think, whatever happens here, it's going to be nothing but an improvement for the area. I looked at every house on 3 sides of it, without the PUD, which is not developed yet. But my observation is, this could help that area.
Well, thank you for doing your homework and going out to the site for the benefit of us all who haven't been out there. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll chime in, Mr. Chairman. You know, this BDP has come a long way from, and resolves a lot of issues that we talked about. If you recall, we had quite a few speakers at the last meeting, and now we've only got the 2. So I think we made the majority of the people happy with the reduced density and increased lot size on the east side, and the buffering that we're doing on the west side. I don't know where I always get upset when people talk about stormwater, because I don't even know where some of those numbers and information come from, but, you know, I do this for a living, and I don't know if the people that come up here and speak understand the research that's gone into this, the requirements that we have to adhere to when we do these nowadays. You know, they're not the same stormwater ponds that we used to do back, you know, years ago. They're pretty high tech. The requirements are pretty, you know, they're very strict, and they are required, or they're done so that they do not increase the pollutant loading any more than what's there now. So to say that a stormwater pond only, you know, only reduces it 50%, I don't know 50% compared to what it was now. Is it an old pond that was designed to some old standard? I don't know. So I take a lot of that with a grain of salt, knowing that right now, and probably historically, this property has discharged directly into the Indian River Lagoon, probably causing significant amount of damage to the lagoon, and that now that to put in a system that will meet all the state and local standards, that will actually be a major improvement to the area. So I don't want to have anybody get confused about drainage on this parcel or any future parcels. So I'm happy with the BDP, happy with all the language and the concessions they've made. And with that, I'm going to recommend approval of the zoning request with the conditions that we talked about, which is the making the 25-foot buffer on the east parcel, the north line of the east parcel to be a continuation of the 15-foot perimeter undisturbed vegetated buffer, and that the west property line be 25-foot buffer with the 6-foot opaque fence.
All right, thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Bruce.
I second it.
And we have a second from Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Let the record show 1 nay. This motion passes. We'll move on to item number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to read items H2 and H3 together since they're companion applications. So H2 is Richard R. Jr. and Gina M. Werble Trust requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from NC to CC. It's located in District 1. H3 is Richard R. Jr. and Gina M. Werble Trust requests to change the zoning classification from AU to BU1, located in District 1.
Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chair, you may need to give us some time to get them in the room.
Oh, okay.
We're just trying to bring one applicant in at a time because of the space. that
All
we
right,
have.
thank you.
Sorry about that.
They have 2 items, 2 and 3.
You're the applicant?
Yes.
All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Rubel, 3885 Ritchie Road.
All right.
Naples, Florida.
Go ahead and tell us what you'd like to propose here.
I purchased a piece of property, AU1, on the corner of McCullough and US 1. It's 1.32 acres, and I want to zone it BU1 because I own the property to the west of it. And it's all BU1, it's like 5.5 acres. And it's a real long sliver, it's 680 feet long. And it comes to 3 points, there's only 3 property lines. So it's a big triangle piece that runs the frontage of US 1. So I was just trying to get it zoned all together because it holds the road frontage on the BU1 partial.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Sir, do you have any plans for what kind of business you're going to be putting in there?
Yeah, we own a restoration business, so I'd like to put up a building to run my business out of.
Restoration of,
Water, fire, mold.
oh, okay.
And what would the nature of that building be? More like a warehouse?
Yeah, a warehouse, just for storage for our vehicles and stuff.
Okay, so they wouldn't be actually manufacturing or doing any work
No.
on the property, it's
No.
just for storage?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. If you'll take a seat in the event somebody's here to speak for or against this issue, and then I'll bring you back up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Do you know if anybody's out there for or against this?
I don't believe we have anybody for
All
this
right.
item.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve as requested for this would be for the land use first.
I second.
All right. We got a motion by Bruce and a second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous, and we'll move on to item number 3.
Motion to approve for the rezoning request as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Ron seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously, so both item number 2 and 3 are approved. You're all set?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to wait a minute for,
Yep.
Just so you guys know, I think that we have just the applicant for 4.
Okay.
But for 5, we have the applicant and we have several.
That's where the crowd's here for, huh?
Guess we're not getting out here at 4 o'clock then.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is item number 4. McD Family Trust LLC requests an amendment to an existing BDP in a BU2 zoning classification. It's located in District 1.
All right, will the applicant come up? Can you state your name and address for the record?
Good afternoon. Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. And what we're proposing to do is amend binding development plan for a mini warehouse that was completed several years ago. And the amendment will be to add an office building, a small office building, and it'll just be in support to the mini warehouse. So they'll have an office there and some couple of restaurants.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, don't go away because I don't think there's anybody here to speak for or against this, but just in case there is there anybody in the audience for or against this item?
Rodney, did you turn in your affidavit?
I did, but I have it right here too.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing nobody here for or against, does the board have any questions or anybody want to make a motion?
I move we approve.
All right. We got a motion by Ron to
Second.
approve. Second by Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's too easy.
And let's move on to item number 5.
Rodney, do you know where John Shepherd might be? Well, he's with us, though. I mean, we're not, okay, we don't care. We're not just shaking hands and that down. We're okay. We're a group, almost like a family.
We have to be 8 out of the same sample.
Wow, no. No, don't go spreading those kind of rumors. We were waiting to plan. And we have John Shepherd downstairs somewhere, but we don't know exactly where he might be. Here's this one. Affidavit and John Shepherd's.
Mr. Chairman, before we start, if you could just make an announcement once we get going, that when a speaker comes in, that they exit, just so we can maintain our social distancing.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I've got right here.
It's over there.
There's always something confrontational with you.
Thank you.
Hello.
People here, you all get one. Board members. They do have quorum, right? They still have quorum, right?
Just barely. So
Don't jinx it. Yeah. Here, I'll just. Oh, we want.
All right, are we ready to go?
Chairman, this is item H5, Canaveral Landings LLC requests a change of zoning classification from TR-1 to TRC-1 with a CUP for cluster development of mobile homes and a BDP limiting residential development to 100 units. It's located in District 1.
All right, will the applicant come up and present? Before you get going, they reminded us that once everybody speaks, except for the applicant, because they have to be able to hear the rebuttals, can stay in the room. But for people who come up and speak for or against this issue, once you've spoken, you will have to leave the room to maintain social distancing, okay? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Hodgers, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Kim Rosanka. I'm with the law firm of Cantwell and Goldman, PA, in Cocoa Village. I'm here representing Canaveral Landing, LLC. With me is the client representative, Nick DeTore, the engineer of record, Rodney Honeycutt with Honeycutt & Associates, and John Shepard with Atlantic Services, an environmental consultant. This proposal is to change the zoning of 33.8 acres from TR1 to TRC1. TRC1 is a single-family mobile home cooperative. This is not a low-income housing development. I know we've seen several response letters from neighbors saying that they believe it's low income, and it is not at all low income. It's a cooperatively owned development, which means the entire property is residentially owned, somewhat like a condominium. This is currently Res 4. It is a difficult property to develop, why it hasn't been developed in the 30, 40 years that it's been there. It's got wetlands of 14.65 acres and uplands of 18.88 acres. And as you see from the concept plan over there on display and what's in your packet, only the uplands is being developed. And we're preserving all of the wetlands, which is why access is not off Canaveral Groves Boulevard. So that is why the access is through Ann Way. As mentioned, this is going to be resident-owned. There's going to be an application for membership. There will be a criminal and credit background check. There will be bylaws. There will be rules and regulations. The limit will be 100. It's going to be requesting the CUP for clustering of mobile homes. This is the first mobile home park I have ever rezoned, so it was a new concept to me. And that allows more flexibility, which is needed because this property is difficult to develop. This is not the only CUP for clustering and TRC1 zoning in the area, as we'll discuss. We've provided a binding development plan to limit this to 100 units, which makes this property compatible with the Res 4 zoning district. The amenities will include a pool, a pavilion with barbecue grills, restrooms, an exercise and walking trail as of yet. All the engineering has not been completed. This is a concept plan required for the CUP. There will be a formal site plan which will have all of the exact dimensions, all of the retention, all of the roads. We've asked for waivers in the CUP because that's what the CUP zoning code says we should do, but we agree that it's more appropriate. We'll come back to the board and do those waivers at a different time. So we're not asking that right now, but the idea is in order to have this development properly done at site plan stage, we're going to ask for an inverted road and removal of sidewalks except for where needed along the main roads. The development will be hooked up to sewer and city water. The prices of the homes will be between $60,000 and $100,000. This is close to what's in the area now. The area is mostly, actually, the area around this is all manufactured homes, and they range anywhere from $18,000 to $108,000, with most being more in the $30,000 to $40,000 to $60,000 range. The homes must be 3 years and newer. We have had the wetlands and the wildlife surveyed. Mr. Shepherd will be here to talk to you about that. Nothing will be disturbed unless allowed by law. There was a 2017 survey by Andrew Conklin that has been provided to county staff, and there are no scrub jays on the property. I know that's in your package, but there are no scrub jays, and Mr. Shepherd will talk about that as well. The access will be through Ann Way. If you look at the first page of the packet that I provided to you, the red square is the property at issue, and that actually shows the names of the roads, which the color photograph in your packet does not show that. So access would be either from the south Canaveral Groves Boulevard, going along Hess Avenue and Luciano Avenue to Ann Way, or from the north along Phyllis Way, again using Hess Avenue and Luciano Avenue. As you'll notice, there's very few homes on that road, and so this will be an increase of traffic that they're not used to. But these are public roads, and Ann Way has an extremely large right-of-way. If there are improvements that are being required that we'll find out at site plan, then we'll be able to do that along Ann Way. Also, if speed bumps are requested, that's what the owners have to do. We can't request speed bumps to be put in on a road, but the owners along the road can ask their county commissioner to put in speed bumps.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, Kim. I think that if we can take a 5-minute recess, we have folks that are here as part of the public, and they can't hear the meeting at the moment. So I got to get them in a location where they can hear what's going on. So if you can give me 5 minutes to do that, and we can take a recess and reconvene. My apologies.
That's fine. We'll do that. back up and we can resume.
Mr. Calkin, do I need to start over?
It'd probably be good.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenko.
Sure. I apologize, but I'm going to start over.
No problem.
Maybe it'll make more sense the second time anyway. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Hodges, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Kim Rosenka. I am here on behalf of Canaveral Landing LLC. I'm an attorney with Cantwell & Goldman, PA in Cocoa, Florida. With me is the client's representative, Nick DeTore, engineer of record, Rodney Honeycutt with Honeycutt & Associates, and John Shepard, environmental consultant with Atlantic Environmental. This is a proposal to rezone 33.8 acres from TR1 to TRC1 with a CUP for clustering of mobile homes. There's also a BDP that will limit the houses to 100 units, and this will be consistent with the Res 4 zoning category. This is a single-family mobile home cooperative. That's what TRC1 is. The entire property is resident-owned, somewhat like a condominium. This is not low-income houses. The individuals have to buy into the cooperative before they can even begin to put their house on the lots. The houses will range from $60,000 to $100,000 in value. There's going to be an application for membership into the co-op. There will be a criminal and credit background check. There are bylaws and there are rules and regulations. There will be amenities, including the pool, a pavilion with barbecue grills, restrooms, an exercise and walking trail. This will connect to sewer and city water. The homes must be 3 years old or newer to be considered for occupancy at this development, Canaveral Landing. This is not a low-income housing development, as some of the residents have raised a concern that it would be low-income. It is not low-income. This property has laid undeveloped for many, many years. There are substantial wetlands on this property. You'll see the southern half, as diagrammed up on the board there and in your packet, are wetlands. There are 13.03 acres of wetlands on the south. Total wetlands are 14.65 acres with only 18.88 of uplands. Because the wetlands are on the south side of the property, access through Canaveral Groves Boulevard is near impossible to do, especially with the concerns of native wildlife and wetlands. So the access is off Ann Way, which is on the east side of the property. The packet that I have provided to you on the first page is from the property appraiser's website. The property at issue is in the red block. You'll see immediately there to the right is the Ann Way access. It has access both from the north and from the south. Phyllis Way to the north, coming down Hess Avenue and Louisiana Avenue, and from the south, Canaveral Groves Boulevard along Hess Avenue and Louisiana Avenue, all going to Ann Way. Ann Way has a substantial right-of-way. If improvements are needed, the county will tell us that during site plan development. And if speed bumps are requested by the owners of the property along these roads, that would be up to the county commissioner of the district, Rita Pritchett, as to whether speed bumps could be placed to stop any concerns about speeding traffic. There will be an increase in traffic along these roads, but this is the only access, and all property has to have access. And this is a dedicated public right-of-way for access to this property. Interestingly enough, if you look to the west of this red block, that is a development called Royal Palms 2. This property that we're trying to rezone now was supposed to be another phase of that manufactured home development. All the homes around these are manufactured homes, and looking at the property appraiser's office, they range in value. The properties from $18,000 to $108,000. That was what was on the property appraiser's website today, with most being in the mid-range between $30,000 and $60,000 for the value of the property. So a house of $60,000 to $100,000 is in the range of what is there and would not cause any diminution of value. This land was zoned TRC1 with a cluster development for 137 homes granted back in 1989. That was changed. I do not know that. It wasn't in the staff report, but this is the exact zoning that was there in 1989. Also, if you look at that colored map I provided to you, if you look to the east and to the south of Canaveral Groves Boulevard, there is a cluster development. That is called Sun Lake Estates. That is TRC 1. And those are two phases, Unit 1 and Unit 2. And then even further to the south of that is a Sun Lake Estate Co-op, which is very similar to what's being proposed here, except this will be much nicer. On the next page, you see Sun Lake Estates, Unit 1, and that is what you see on your colored map. There are 70 homes there. Next page is Sun Lake Estates Unit 2, which is to the east of what you're looking at, and those are 67 units. Then below that, which you can't see yet, is the Sun Lake Village Estates LLC, which is a TRC1 with a cluster development. And there's only 2 pages of the property appraiser's website. This is 25.26 acres. It's 146 units, and there are absolutely no amenities. This has been there for a long time. And if you look at the next page, it's a black and white of the property appraiser's website, and you can see on the left side of the page there, it's all that one big lot, and you've got very close set mobile homes. Again, this will be 100 units on more acreage, and we'll have amenities. The next page is section 62.1920, cluster development of mobile homes. This is what the intent is of Canaveral Landing LLC, and this is a CUP I had never worked with before. I don't think it's been worked with very often in the county, and nothing too recently. So this is what we have asked for along with the TRC1 zoning. Density cannot exceed 6 units. We don't. There's no minimum lot size, although we've provided it on the concept plan. All the units will be 20 feet from the edge of a public right-of-way with 15 feet between all structures. The site plan will contain the precise location of all mobile homes. This is a concept plan. The site plan will be more detailed and reviewed by all the departments of the county. 25% of the parking may be provided in common. We're not doing that. It's a may, it's not a shall. Design requirements, this is number 7, with respect to streets, sidewalks, and drainage may be waived by the Board of County Commissioners. That is something I mentioned earlier. We'll be coming back to the County Commission to ask for the waivers to the roads and the sidewalks. But that's not to be done at this stage, although it is on the concept plan. 25% of the development will be provided in usable common recreation and open space. We have provided that. Staff has opined that we do meet that requirement. And then each dwelling will have access to a public street or access via a private street, which again, there'll be an internal private street, which will access to Ann Way. So we do meet the requirements of the CUP. The last page of your packet is a letter that we sent to all the residents because we weren't really able to have a community meeting under the COVID guidelines. As you know, there are many people here that are either asking for information or looking to comment. And so this is the letter we sent explaining to all the residents. We sent 122 of them out on June 24th. And we also attached the color layout, which is like the board you see over there. And that has resulted in a number of comments to the county, including a petition that was submitted, which is concerned about the endangered wildlife. It's over 150 people signed. Many from the same location, same residence address, and they're concerned about the endangered wildlife. And we have John Shepard here to speak about that. That is my presentation. I can take questions, but the questions might be more appropriate for the engineer, Mr. Honeycutt, or the owner, Mr. DeTore. If there are no questions, I do want Mr. Shepard to speak.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Rosanka?
I do.
Go ahead, Joe.
I visited the site, and I'm curious, I know that's wetlands to the south of it, but why can't they specifically put in a road to make a lot easier access to get out of communities and easier for the folks living there to get somewhere?
John, can you address what you have to do to put a road through there? Sure. Because it does cause all kinds of problems with wetlands, with animals going over the road, but I'll let Mr. Shepherd discuss that.
Hello, I'm John Shepherd with Atlantic Environmental. And to get to your concern, there are wetlands all on the southern side of the site. And in order to go through those wetlands, you have to go through a permitting process. The county only allows 1.8% of the entire acreage of a site to be impacted with regards to wetlands. So I think that, I haven't figured out how wide the road would have to be, 50 feet. We wouldn't be able to allow that to happen because we would be over the 1.8% the county allows with wetland impacts.
1.8%.
That's the county's rule when it comes to single-family home subdivisions and residential land.
Any other questions?
I actually had one.
Okay.
Were you done?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I saw that what you proposed, it was 0.08 acres. Surrounding area is 0.25. Was there a reason, or did you look at or entertain lot sizes that were consistent with the immediate neighbors?
It's not a real lot size because it's a cluster. And the cluster allows for you to have this many units together, like the one to the south that I showed you, the Sun Lake Village Estates. And that is because half the property is not usable. So you're allowed to do the cluster development, and because the wetlands are spaced awkwardly, as you can see from the north side there, this was a way to do what was allowed by code to still do a mobile home park with a density that was reasonable to develop the project. So it's not really a 0.08 acre lot. That's just the base where they're going to sit, because they're not lots per se.
All right, any other questions for the applicant by the board? Do any of the other applicants want to speak?
Mr. Shepherd, yeah, I'd like Mr. Shepherd to explain.
So there are two main concerns, as I see it, from an environmental perspective on this property. One is the wetlands, and I think the applicant's done really well with avoiding that issue by avoiding basically all wetland impacts on the site. You can't ask for any more than that. And then the second issue are going to be tortoises, and prior to any kind of development going on out there, we would relocate the tortoises and get them out of harm's way. I've seen other comments about scrub jays and owls and other species. We haven't found that those species we haven't found that protected species such as the scrub jay are using this land in any manner that requires any kind of permitting or any kind of relocation to occur. So again, it all boils down to just those two issues, the wetlands and gopher tortoises.
Any questions? All right. Any of the other applicants want to speak before we turn it over to the public?
Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. I'll repeat some of the things that Ms. Rosanka mentioned. The maximum of 100 units. These units, it's a co-op. It's kind of unusual, so you actually don't have a lot. You just buy into the co-op, and you're allowed to place your structure there. And then we have to go through a site plan process, and the site plan process locates all those structures that meets the code, the setbacks, and everything. The access will be by Ann Way. Ann Way will align up with the existing Ann Way. On our concept plan, it's a little different because right at the last minute, trying to find some data on Sharps Road, we had a survey that shows where that is, so it'll cross that ditch. There are a couple of streets that are dead end. They're less than 150 feet long, and so it's not required to have a turnaround. There'll be public water and sewer, so that means no septic tanks. The previous design that was in here a few years ago had septic, so I think that's a big plus. And as Mr. Shepherd mentioned, we took time to lay this out to avoid any wetland impacts, because we felt that was an important way to do it. Anybody have any other questions about it?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So help me get this straight, Rodney. So under the current designation, you could have potentially 135 trailers under the TR1 zoning that it's already currently at? Am I correct in that?
I think that's the number. I don't remember, yeah.
And it's been like that, well, zoned that way forever, right?
Yeah,
And regarding access, from what I can see, there's only two public right-of-ways that touch this parcel, and that's Ann Way and Canaveral Groves Boulevard. But Canaveral Groves Boulevard, you would have to tromp through the wetlands to get to it. But I know Kim said something about this was like a part, maybe a second part to a previous plat. I guess that's from the property to the west?
West, I think, yeah.
Okay. But they extended Ann Way to this parcel from the east at some point in time to pick up
Correct.
this parcel? Okay. Yeah, okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Actually, I do have a couple. Some of the documents that staff had provided talked about some issues with parking spaces and ADA compliance.
And so during the site plan process, we have to prove we meet all of those to get a site plan approved.
But so you are aware of that?
Yes.
And the same thing, is this application include, I saw something else in here about waiver requests?
It was in there initially. We also had a different layout initially. And so there was two waiver requests. One of them was to have an inverted crown. Probably we will not request that one during the site plan process. The other one is to have, in lieu of the sidewalks, to have a trail system. Mm-hmm. And so both of those have been withdrawn, and we will, if we decide to go for those, it'll be during the site plan process.
Is that all? All right, before we open it up to the public, I just wanted to have staff reconfirm what Bruce's question was, so there was no ambiguity here, that it's currently zoned to allow 135 mobile homes on this parcel as it sits. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it's not the zoning, it's the land use of 4 units to the acre.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we're going to open up to public comment at this point, so we'll start by having people come up one at a time. When you do come up, you have 2 minutes to speak. Due to COVID-19, once you've spoken, you will need to leave the room and go to, where's the other room at?
It's on the first floor. It's the board's chambers, and you'll be able to hear the rest of the meeting down there. We have some folks in the hallway that we'll start bringing in once folks start leaving, and then we'll bring those folks back up.
So in case you could not hear, once you speak, you'll leave. Somebody out in the hallway will escort you out down to the first floor where you can hear the rest of the comments. All right, so we'll open it up at this time for anybody who'd like to speak for or against this issue. Come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm Dan Hunter, 4125 Hess Avenue. I have the petition that was spoke of earlier. I have a couple copies of this, and I would like to hand these out to some of the members, as well as this. I only have 2 copies of the petition, but this one I will be referring to also. Is that this?
Yeah, we have this already, I believe, the petition.
Okay. You have that petition?
Yep, so I didn't want to eat up your time to speak, so I'll restart your clock.
Yes, sir. We have 180 signatures of locals that are opposed to this development. This development is advertised as low-income housing on their website, on Canaveral Landing website, and the values are much lower than the homes that are in the existing neighborhood. This is not homogeneous with the existing neighborhood in any way, and I don't think it's in conjunction with the comprehensive development plan of Brevard County. We do have some major concerns. One is, a big one, is the traffic. If you'll see on the agenda, page 3, policy 5, it says the proposed concept plan shows project sole access to Anway through existing subdivision contain 1 acre. Development will generate 499 average trips a day. Now, we have that much probably going down our neighborhood street now. We're going to double this on a neighborhood street. That's going to make Hess Avenue, Anway, and Phyllis Way like a major highway. And it's not. It's a development where people live. It's going to create a main thoroughfare as people commute between Canaveral Grove Boulevard and Grissom Parkway.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Pardon?
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Well, this isn't the only possible access, as said before. There's an increased danger with all this traffic. We have families that are activities, riding horses, bicycles, walking, exercising all up and down the street. The noise is going to be an issue. The wildlife concerns, I live against that. My property abuts that property. There are scrub jays out there. I can see the scrub jay habitats from my house. I can see the scrub jays. I see the screech owls come onto the property. I see the owls, the eagles, everything else in there. Drainage is another big issue. When we have flooding, heavy rains, it runs off of that property.
I have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, I'll conclude. We have extensive flooding on Hess Avenue already. It makes it impassable during heavy storms. The water is literally 2 to 3 foot deep. In conclusion, we just ask that you guys take into consideration the residents in the neighborhood now and our safety and the environment around us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next. State your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Joe Cassette. I live at 4050 Luciano. Our area is zoned for RRMH1. We're a little bit further away. A little disappointed they only had a 500-foot notice. Maybe as the crow flies, probably, yeah. I guess if I stood up on top of my house, I could probably see the place. We're not opposed to any of this kind of housing necessarily, but what they're proposing sounds like they're going to fit well over a dozen units on each acre of land. That's the current zoning in most of that area is, what, like 4 per acre or something like that? We just moved in there. I put a triple wide in there. I've got over 200 grand into the place already, so I think some of their data is a little bit out. There are also cinder block homes in there, not just manufactured homes. There may not be that many of them, but there are some. As far as I know, we don't have any sewer in that whole area. We do have city water, okay? We were forced to put a septic in. It cost me 13 grand just to put that in. What are they going to do for that? Where's the city septic in that area? I don't think there is any. Maybe you guys could say. I guess not.
Yes, I don't know where the sewer's coming from, but I imagine it's coming in from the Sun Lakes development. They have a sewer treatment plant there.
At Sun Lakes, sewer treatment plant,
Yeah.
their own, on their property?
Yeah.
Or is it county?
No, it's theirs.
So
Is that right?
they're going to share the facility, you're saying?
Oh, there is. Okay. Oh, I'm staying corrected. There's a county force main on Grissom they can tie into.
We could also attribute, my wife's, we're avid birders. There are a lot of scrub jays in that area. On our property, which is, as I say, probably just a little over 500 feet away from there, maybe 750 feet. So there's a lot of tortoises. They said they're going to relocate them. They were going to make us relocate too. When we moved in, we had to take all those other considerations. I hope all environmental considerations will be taken into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll
Thank
yield
you.
the time to anybody else who'd like to speak.
Thank you. Next. Anybody else like to come up and speak? Come on up.
My name is Gillingham. We live 4035 Hess Avenue. And I'm concerned about the scrub jays and everything else. The wetlands is right behind our house, okay? Right behind it. And we have scrub jays and we have everything, but I'm more concerned about the people and the children that live in the area, that ride their horses, and they go down the edge of the street. They walk through our yard, which is fine. You know, they don't hurt the yard. But we've got enough cars now. And we get another 300 or 400 cars going up and down those roads every day. Somebody's going to get hurt. 2 acres from us is a family that has 4 small kids, and the parents get out there with them, and they walk the horse, and they put the kids on them. But you have to calm some of those people now down that are go blazing through there. And here's a horse walking. It's got 2 little kids, maybe 4 and 6 years old on it. And the parents are there, and they're watching. Thank God they are, because the people that buzz down the street don't care. And it's just, it's not safe. And we bought these out there 40 years ago because they were an acre or more. And people around there have lived on them, taken care of them, raised their families there. A lot of them have moved and went on. But it's not going to be like that if we have a raceway out there. You know, enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. State your name and address.
My name is Marie Dahm. I live at 4130 Louisiana Avenue. I lived out there for 40 years. The proposal, what they're proposing, is going to ruin the integrity of our neighborhood. We all have acre lots. We all take care of our property. If you're going to run 100 mobile homes with, they're proposing 2 cars per mobile home, that is 200 cars going through our neighborhood. And if anybody's been out there to look, Ann Way, there's only one little house on Ann Way. The rest is all drainage ditches. It's going to ruin the integrity of our neighborhood to have 200 cars running through a residential neighborhood. And I asked you to please consider this when you're making your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Come on. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Comino. I'm the owner of Home Nation, 3737 US 1. We hope to be a provider of some of the homes in this area. And we have people almost every day coming to us in this county who either are living here and renting or intend to move here, who simply can't find anything that they can afford. And this project would be affordable to them. And let me make one distinction. There's been a mention here of low-income housing, and by no means would this be considered low-income housing. However, it is affordable housing because the typical payment after the purchase of the lot and the home is going to be between $800 and $1,200 a month. Now, that would address probably 80% of the AMI, area median income, which would qualify it as affordable, but not by any means low income. All right? And so people could afford this package. You know, we've got a number of people. Nick's a friend of mine, the developer, the owner, and we've had a number of people we've mentioned this project to who are very, very excited at the prospect of finally being able to be a homeowner in this county. And my question to the board here, since this will service the lower third of the population, again, not low income but affordable, is if these people can't live here, then where are they going to live?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Mary Lou South. I'm at 785 Ann Way, so this is going to impact me the most because I live on the dead end where they want to put the road over the creek. I have rattlesnakes coming into my yard. I have raccoons, because they've already started to take the brushes out of the property. And like they said, too, you're going to put 100 mobile homes in a cluster. It's way too many. They need to scale it back down to make 50. And then you're going to have cars, going to have people own 2 cars. That's 200 going by my house every day. Plus their friends will be coming over. Would you like all that traffic? I don't. So this is really upsetting, and we don't want it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next. State your name and address for the record.
My name's Troy Yates. I own a home on Fountain Palm. Like everybody else, they're really concerned about the traffic. And Mr. Honeycutt mentioned about forced main sewer. Pretty much everybody out there has septic tank. So I'm not really sure how they're going to get sewer. You guys mentioned something on Grissom. I couldn't hear. I was sitting back there.
Yeah, there's a force main pipe system they'll have to connect to. They're going to extend it to Grissom. There's one runs along Grissom. They would extend it from the property through a lift station and pump it to the force main along Grissom.
And I wasn't aware there was one out there because everybody around me is all on septic tank.
Yeah.
And like she mentioned, there's really going to be way too many homes. 100 of them seems like a lot. And it's just going to be a big impact on everything. And then the traffic is going to be so bad, then eventually I have to put a stoplight on Canaveral Groves for smooth traffic to come in and out. Because it's just going to be, because I notice now how it is, people are cutting through, Royal Palm to avoid the traffic that's building up on Canaveral Groves because of all the other development that's going on in Port St. John and other areas. So now they're going to be going down through there, and then, eventually you're going to need a stop sign or a sign, or it's just going to be, and if they're only going in on Ann Way, that's going to be a lot of traffic, especially for them. And then there's an entrance on Fountain Palm that I think they're going to try to utilize. It's just a dead end that goes into the woods, and I'm thinking eventually they're going to try to utilize that. Or at least one in and one going out. At least, scale it down like she mentioned so we can still have some of the, the wildlife back there in the trees for a buffer zone. Because basically the way it looks like now, we're going to have, a home right in our backyard, because that's why we bought it years ago, because it was quiet and we had woods back there. There's all the wildlife, birds, raccoons, possums, otters, all that. We used to walk back there a lot, but.
All right. You've got 10 seconds to conclude.
And I'm just basically here to oppose, what's going on. At least scale this back quite a bit. But I'd say it's going to be, a big problem later down the road.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Who else would like to speak? Come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Claude Wheeler, 4165 Hess Avenue. Well, there's issues other than the wildlife. Yes, there are a number of tortoises, there are indigo snakes, there are scrub jays, there are owls, there are woodpeckers, all living back there. I also adjoined the property in question. So there's no question a lot of animals are impacted. My issue has to do with you're trying to turn my neighborhood into a flag lot. The flag lot are not allowed in Brevard County. You're not allowed to sell half of your acreage behind you and create a road, the flagpole to the flag. And you're trying to make Hess Avenue a flag for a lot that nobody should have ever bought if they didn't plan on building a road to get to Canaveral Groves Boulevard so you can have your own neighborhood, which is what you're proposing. Hess Avenue, Luciano Avenue, Harvey, Ann, and Phyllis have less than 100 trailers on all of them, and it's 3 times the size of this lot that you want to put 100 trailers on, and you don't even want to build your own road. If you can't build your own road with your own neighborhood, then you shouldn't have bought the property. That's it. That's what I have to say.
Thank you.
And there ain't nobody, and let me tell you something, talking about 150 signatures, knowing that there's 180-something signatures I don't want to hear that. And I don't want to hear $30,000. You can't buy a lot anywhere in there for $30,000 or $60,000 with a trailer on it. So that's not true either. So you need to tell the truth about what's going on. And we have 100 trailers on all through that Ann Way. People with horses. I'm zoned for horses. I have animals. And I don't want 500 cars a day to compete with the horses on that road. It's not fair. It's not right. You can't build a road to your development. You shouldn't have one. I am not a flag lot for somebody's development. And
Thank you.
180 signatures was a single pass.
All right.
Single pass.
Sir, you're out of time.
Petition. That petition went around one time. You want to see 400 signatures? Wait till next month.
Anybody else would like to come up and speak? State your name and address for the record.
We own two houses. We got one on Fountain Palm, one on Royal Palm, 4020 Royal, 4081 Fountain Palm. I don't know why we get 2 minutes. We should be able to speak our own opinion and not have a time limit. This is stupid. Everything he said was true. There are tortoises out there. I have 3 on my property that I can't touch or remove. And it should be, you shouldn't have to remove these tortoises. If y'all keep letting developers come out here, where are we going to put all these tortoises? Animals, snakes. They're going to be in your backyard. You can't touch these endangered animals. So I don't know where they plan on putting them, why they want to spend money to remove them. It's retarded. We have, like he said, more than those signatures. I spoke with the fellow also. He said he told me he owned the road on Fountain Palm, which I didn't get. And then he told me he's deeded to it, so I don't know how it is. And then he's also telling me he's going to fence that road in right there, which I don't know how you could fence off a public road. And if they telling us to come off Ann Way, that road has a huge ditch in it that goes all around, and it does also flood. And there is more wetland back there than what's obviously stated. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next. Anybody else like to speak?
I just want to say I'm with...
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mary Ann Conrad. I live at 4105 Hess Avenue. And I just want to agree
Can you
with
speak into the
everybody.
microphone so everybody can hear you?
I just want to agree with everybody that's been up here talking. That's what I want.
All right, thank you. Anybody else that'd like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is James Conrad. I live at 4105 Hess Avenue, right beside Ann Way going into that outfit. I don't want to see 4 units per acre when most everybody out there is 1 unit per acre. And I don't want to be sitting there every night listening to all this frickin' traffic going in and out, in and out, in and out. On Hess Avenue and Ann Way, there's a stop sign going north and south on Hess Avenue. Coming through Ann Way is nothing. Some people stop on that road, sit there at the stop sign, burn their tires, about 2 inches off their frickin' tires. And then you got these people with 200 cars or 100 cars sitting out there wants to come through there to get on the Hess Avenue to go to Canaveral Boulevard or down the Phyllis Way out to Grissom. I don't want to hear that crap. That's too much noise, too dangerous, too many vehicles, too many people in 4-foot square property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Angela Paradise. I own 4055 Royal Palm Avenue. I bought this property a year ago, improving it, and I did not buy it with a concept with a mobile home park going to come in, and over time, mobile home parks deteriorate. I don't care if they're co-op or not co-op. And overall, it's going to lower the overall price of all surrounding properties of the area. Traffic is going to increase. And the only reason is this is an investment for them. And for these investments, they're low-cost investments for these investors because they get a great return in such a short amount of time. And these properties are in high demand because they're difficult to get the zoning approved. And everybody, I would say a good 90% or 95% of the surrounding neighbors all disapprove of this. Enough said.
Thank you. Is there anybody else left? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jack Gillingham. I live on 4035 Hess Avenue, and I'm just repeating pretty much what everybody else says about the traffic. That means 100 mobile homes, two cars per lot. That's 200 cars in the morning and 200 cars in the evening. People going and coming, and plus narcotin during the day. And I'm just against it. I think it's wrong.
All right, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sonia Miller. I live on 4282 Fountain Palm, and I recently bought a house, or I bought the house in May and I did not know about this, and I was upset when I found out about it because I still haven't gotten a letter. But I can tell you right now that I bought this house for over what you guys are saying that these properties are going to be worth. And I have looked at the surrounding area, and all of us are well over 108,000 per house. And we live on either half an acre or an acre, so I don't think 100 houses is going to be acceptable. And I plan to have kids and raise my kids at this house, but I feel like I will have to put my kids playing in the yard instead of on my cul-de-sac because I already have people coming down my cul-de-sac that do not live on my cul-de-sac. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody left? All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Cynthia Shea, 4122 Fountain Palm Road. Are these manufactured or mobile or both that's going in there for housing? Does anybody know?
Manufactured or mobile?
Pardon?
Are they manufactured or mobile homes?
Or both?
Manufactured homes.
Manufactured.
They are manufactured. Do you have a start and a completion date on this, all of that? Any ETAs?
No. Ma'am, you're not allowed to ask them
I'm
questions.
sorry.
You have to just
Okay.
address your comments to the board.
Do you have a start or a completion date, ETAs, roundabouts?
No,
No.
there is not.
Okay, all right. And the one-way in and one-way out is going to be in-way only? And how do we know the person who spoke earlier said that there's a piece of property on Fountain Palm? How do we know that that will not, in a certain amount of time, be used as an entry and exit way if the traffic gets too horrendous through Ann Way?
That'll be a question we'll ask the applicant once all the speakers have spoken.
Okay, all right. I'm concerned also about the traffic impact and the wildlife impact. And that petition that was signed, I was never informed of a petition. Otherwise, I would have signed that also. So there would have been more signatures than when that went around, but I was never informed of it. This is impacting the lifestyle of all who have worked hard to live there. Because like the girl who said previously, there's many homes in there that are worth over $108,000. And when this property goes in, it's going to decrease all of our values, who we've worked so hard to get there for that. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else left in the room that wants to speak for or against this? Doesn't look like it. So at this time, we'll have the applicant come back up and answer a couple of the questions that have been brought up through public comment.
Yes, sir.
Start out with Fountain Way, I guess. Is that a possibility in the future?
Well, what we have before you for the CUP, that's a binding plan. So if we want to come back to try to get another entrance or exit way, we have to come back to Planning and Zoning and County Commission. Mr. DeTore has bought it's a little parcel on almost directly across Ann Way on the west side of the property. That was supposed to be a right-of-way into the second phase of Royal Palm, but Royal Palm 3 was never built. And so that was, we found out it looked like it was common property. There was no HOA, so it was just a vacant piece of property, and Mr. DeTore did buy that. but we haven't incorporated it in yet because if you see, there's a huge drainage ditch. There's all kinds of impediments to developing this project. That would be ideal if we could have a second access to alleviate some of the traffic concerns, but we don't know if it's feasible yet. So this is the plan that we've requested. If it's going to be changed, then we would have to come back.
All right.
Is that between 47 and 48? Right across the main way?
Yeah, it's right across from Ann Way. It's a little piece of property.
Between lot 47, 48?
Yeah, I'm trying to look at what you're looking at. Yeah, mine doesn't have numbers on it. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's D. So it's the little D right across from Ann Way. It's a very small piece of property. It was never dedicated to the public. It was held by the HOA, but there was no HOA. So it was in a defunct corporation, which we had to track down to buy. So it's possible that there may be a second entrance, but he just bought it like 2 weeks ago, and the engineering hasn't been done. But right now, that's a binding concept plan for this development, if this is approved.
All right. Any comments about the sewer? That seemed to be a pretty common thing that came up. Obviously, they commented that it looks like you're going to tie into the existing sewer.
Yeah, and if that's an issue, that can go into the CUP or the binding development plan, whichever way you want to do it. But yes, there will be sewer and septic. You can't run this kind of development without that. And it's better for the environment to have sewer than septic. So we'll have sewer and water. If I said septic, I misspoke. The only other comments I had from what we've heard is people don't like change. They like the wildlife. We understand that. That's what I've said. That petition, if you look at the heading, was they don't want to see the wildlife disturbed. They like the access to their property. There is a lot of people along that ditch through the center of the property. There's a little access road, a maintenance road. Ironically, that is historical drainage, but there's no county easement, so we're still trying to work out some of those issues. My client did want a culvert so he could get in off Ann Way. We've been working through that. We need some permitting to do that. So there are some challenges. People are used to having a very large piece of property in their backyard that they use as they see fit. And this is someone's property, had been someone's property for a long time. There was some people that brought up issues about the value of the homes. I did not mean to offend anyone or misspeak, but I checked every piece of property around this 33.8 acres, and they range from $30,000, actually one was $18,000 to $108,000. There may be others in the area, but again, the investment into this co-op is going to be anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. Then you buy the house on top of it. So these parcels will have value. It will be run by a cooperative board like a condo association. It's not going to disintegrate into something awful. Also, the Sun Lake Estates is at 1/3 of a mile, 1650 to the east of this property. Those are the smaller lots, the manufactured home that also has the cluster development to the south of that. So this is compatible with development in the area. It is a difficult piece of property, which your administrative code says if there are reasons that this property hasn't been developed and there's reasons that it should be developed at a higher zoning, that's appropriate. Actually, your comp plan doesn't say that. That's what case law says. But there are reasons this hasn't been developed now. TRC1 is what the zoning was back in the 80s and 90s, and I don't know when that changed. Staff may. But it is an appropriate zoning. There is zoning such as that nearby, and the CUP for clustering makes this developable and makes it so sewer and water can be brought in. If others want to connect, they probably can. They don't have to. That was a concern that was raised. But this development will have sewer and water to be successful and actually to be built at all. But what you see, that is a concept plan that goes with the conditional use permit we've asked for. So it's a TRC1 zoning plus a binding development plan plus the conditional use for the clustering as represented by the binding site plan.
All right, thank you. You have a question?
Just a question and some comments. So environmental review is part of the site planning. You're still going to go through that. There's going to be, and code allows for the removal of gopher tortoises, those kind of things, to allow for development. Comment I have is it's currently zoned for up to 135 based on what's allowable per all the different codes and regulations. So this is actually potentially 70 less vehicles traveling with roads based on this design that you, and this proposal you brought forward.
And actually, if it were single-family homes, it would be over 9 trips per unit. Because these are manufactured homes, it's 5 trips per unit.
Right.
That's why, if this was single-family home development, you'd have even more traffic.
And then just a quick comment based on what I do. I hate hearing the tie of low income or affordable housing to increases in crime or anything like that. It actually, some data and some research and statistics shows that that is actually not the case. That you actually put low income housing into high crime areas, you see it decrease. So I personally dislike those arguments.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any comments or questions?
Sorry, I missed stuff there, but I do have a couple questions.
Okay.
I'm taking a guess that Canaveral Groves will not be an entry and exit because of the wetlands there?
It's all wetlands. There's almost 14 acres of wetlands there, and it would be over the 1.8% of wetlands impact to bring the access through there.
Okay. What do you plan on doing with the wetlands right now? I'm sorry.
Maintain them all.
Maintain them all?
On the north end, you can see there's some little green spaces. There may be some minor impacts where the units are, but they're very minor. If they're impacted at all, they'll be protected.
And you stated that there's going to be sewer and water and manufactured homes. My next question, I'm just trying to picture this in my mind. In Palm Bay, we have an area like Palm Bay Colony. Is this going to be a 55 and up community? This will be a 55 up community?
No, this will not.
Oh, okay.
This will be cooperatively owned, so all of the unit owners own like a condo. And so there's a background check for both criminal and credit. All the houses must be 3 years or newer, and it will be run by a board of directors that are owners. So it's a cooperative.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Anybody else with any questions?
Yeah, just one question. So 33 acres, 14 acres of wetlands you're going to leave undisturbed?
Yeah, it's 33.8 acres, almost 34.
Almost 34, so 14 acres. But I guess that would go into conservation more than likely? I know you haven't probably committed to that, but
Yeah, we haven't yet.
it'll be preserved.
Right.
So for that big of a piece of property, those homeowners that back up to that basically won't realize a real change at all.
Half of them won't, you're correct.
So only about 21 homeowners that back up to the west or the north half will be directly impacted.
And if you look, there's a very large retention pond to the north, so those to the north won't be impacted much either.
Oh, okay, so the people, okay, so that's even less, so that gets it about to 16 or so. No more questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
A comment. I can certainly understand why the people are concerned about the traffic. Where I live, we all have large lots, very little traffic, and that's what these neighbors have, is they have they're large lots, and there's 20 houses there. So on an average, they've got at most 10 houses going with traffic. And so now you're going to put on that same street traffic from 100 houses. So their concerns about traffic are real. I know we understand, and we can have a comment about from the traffic department, that road is not a problem. It'll support the road. That has nothing to do with it. It's the people that live on the road have to deal with the traffic. Not the road's going to support the number of cars. So I can certainly understand where those people are coming from. I just don't think it's a good idea to have that many new houses put in that area.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's already approved for TR1.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they're going down,
Yes.
and my concern would be if they put another access road in, why not? That would alleviate a lot of the traffic problem.
He just bought it 2 weeks ago, and this has been in play for 3 months, so it
Okay.
hasn't been evaluated yet. But yes, that would be helpful, agreed. And if you could put it off Canaveral Groves Boulevard, that would be the best, but it can't be done. So it is being investigated, but we just didn't have it to bring to you today.
To save you some paperwork and everything, can we make it Lot D that's listed there, can you have it listed in the CUP or in the BDP that it would be an entry and exit if available?
That could be a condition of the CUP.
Yeah.
Certainly. But then we're still going to have to come back for a revision to the concept plan, which may or may not be a big deal.
All right, any other questions by any of the board? Any comments from staff? All right, anybody want to entertain a motion?
I'd like to discuss it a little bit. Sometimes it just really annoys me that when people come up here and say things that really aren't accurate. I pulled up the website for this company, and I'm not trying to speak for them, but nowhere on this website do I see low-income housing said or noted on here, but that was the testimony that we heard. Was it says it right on their website? Well, it doesn't say that. So it says it's high-quality, affordable housing opportunities for fixed-income individuals and families of modest means. I don't see low income there anywhere. So I get a little annoyed when testimony is not quite accurate. And I'd also verified what Ms. Rosanka said about the property values in that area. If you go to the property appraiser's website, which lists every property sold in the last 5 years, you have some properties just sold this year. Yeah, you have one that was sold for $130,000, but you also have one that was sold for $53,000. You have last year you have one that was sold for $100,000, $252,000, but you also had one that was sold for $18,000. So it's all over the map. They're everywhere. There's some that are really nice and some that maybe aren't so nice. So it is all over the map. I'm not going to say what that really means, but just fact checking a little bit. I mean, every time we have something like this in a community like this, which is a well-established community, they do have large lots, and they have enjoyed a very peaceful lifestyle. I mean, I have to admit, Canaveral Groves is pretty famous for that. However, that's been zoned for 135 trailer units for as long as anybody can remember, and you bought in there knowing that, or should have known that, and they're coming in and limiting themselves to 100, preserving almost 50% of the site in the wetlands. I think that goes a long way. I mean, could it be better? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Will everybody be affected by the traffic? No, because as traffic leaves the site, it'll disperse. Some will go north, some will go south, some will go straight to get to where they got to go. Obviously, the older gentleman that spoke up that lives on the corner, he's going to get it all. He's right there. He's right next to it, and I can understand his frustration. And I know I wouldn't really appreciate that, but I would probably, if I knew I was buying next to a trailer park, I probably would expect it would happen at some point in time. Unfortunately, I think they would have submitted this thing with tying into Canaveral Groves if it was allowed, but it's not allowed. So what do we do? That's maybe not a debate for this board, but if they were asking, if this was agricultural and they were asking for this, I could see having a really real problem with this, but they're basically downzoning this. So I don't really have a problem with it in general. Are there some things that maybe we should be looking at to lessen the impact? I can't think of any without making their property harder to develop than it already is. So I just wanted to state that I did some fact checking while we were here, so I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that.
Thank you for that input. Staff has a comment.
Yeah, and I don't think this is where Mr. Moya was going, but just for the board to let you know that Florida case law is very clear that any testimony about diminution in value of surrounding property has to be based on expert testimony, basically an appraiser. So you really can't take that into account unless you heard from somebody that has the knowledge to testify to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else have any comments?
Just going off what Mr. Moya was saying, they are preserving wetlands. You know, I would like to see another entry and exit added if it can be. Other than that, I mean, you're adding septic and sewer. You're making this
sewer.
property better, honestly, than as it sits right now. So I'm in favor of this, and I'm actually gonna make a motion to approve. And I'd like the CUP to add an entry and exit on Fountain Park Road if available, if accessible.
I'd second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Let the record show Ron's the only nay. Thank you. All right, and moving on to our last item.
Item H6 is 3101 Gannett Plaza LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only, for on-premises consumption in conjunction with an indoor family entertainment center in the BU1 and BU2 zoning classifications.
And I don't think the applicant's in here yet. So. All right.
Wow. That's a big piece of property. I wonder what they're gonna put on this piece of property. It's a big piece of property.
Oh, for number 6.
Yeah.
Is it indoor family?
Indoor,
entertainment?
yeah. Gonna be like another urban area, I guess. If they
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Guess we'll,
maybe Top Golf or something.
yeah, one
I
can
don't know if that's considered indoor or outdoor.
Yeah.
Some things, you know, when you build one of those things now, you can't really go to them.
Right.
See, with social distancing, it's almost impossible. I don't know how they're staying in business. Oh, this is the existing paper plant, the old Gannett.
Yeah. I didn't even keep count, but I think
Yeah.
there was about 30 people who wanted to
So,
comment.
yeah, okay, that's why it says Gannett Plaza. I thought maybe they were buying another piece of property. This has been, they moved out of this a
No
long
big deal.
time ago.
Okay.
I can feel for them and
Guess
what
someone's buying them.
their issues are, but I wish they were able to be more informed
Design
by
this facility.
the realities.
RPAs.
I mean, anytime you have home ownership, I think you're gonna have better
It's pretty
neighbors
cool.
than if you
It's
were
got
living in, an
has like
apartment
a,
building. You know, people respect their
actual
property
stream.
more regardless of whether it's a mobile home or a house.
They built over it.
You know, traffic's gonna be a pain for this, but
And, yeah, it comes from
Yeah.
where it starts and it goes through out to the river. And,
They said they could do it.
it was
it's
just,
unfortunate that they wouldn't let them get access. I mean, okay, they have a limit, but how much is it gonna go? Where is it gonna go to 2%? I mean, if it's that small, why not let them do it? Yeah. They say it's hard and fast rule, no more than 1.8%. Well, you know, you're stuck.
arm stick out.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's like 15 feet.
Where's the free with your blue stick?
No. That was at 80, this 87.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy. We're gonna have more people complaining.
Not working in here. I'm with these two. We're trying to do it Florida.
I need your green sheet.
From where originally?
Colorado.
And then nobody asked me about
Is that national?
Well, we have offices in Colorado and Florida.
One of the board members stepped out for a second, so we'll wait for him to come back.
On Park Road.
Fountain Palm.
Fountain Palm. Yeah, Fountain Palm Road. So. Where's your office? It's been next to Sun Tree. So we do facilities and right now. They agreed to it. They agreed to it if it's accessible.
Yes, I got that, I can hear the road.
All right, staff, we're ready for the final item.
I've already read it in. Do you want me to read it into the record again?
Yeah, go ahead since people are in here now.
Okay. Item H6 is 3101 Gannett Plaza LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only, for on-premises consumption in conjunction with an indoor family entertainment center in a BU1 and BU2 zoning classifications.
All right, is the applicant here? Please come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Sir, can you talk into the microphone better, so we can hear you better?
Kevin Dale Saltzman, 1275 Tuckaway Drive, Rockledge, Florida.
All right, tell us what you'd like to do.
We are planning to develop an indoor family entertainment center at 3101 Gannett Plaza Avenue, the old Florida Today building. And in conjunction with that entertainment venue, we would like a conditional use permit to serve beer and wine indoors for on-site consumption.
Okay. Does any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
Couple questions.
Go ahead.
Is the entire facility indoors? You said it was an indoor facility. Is everything indoors? The go-karts and?
Yes, sir. They're indoor electric go-karts.
Oh,
so
okay.
all of the attractions are indoors. The only intent for any outdoor use is there's an existing, we're referring to it as a patio. It's the old loading dock that the trucks still use there. It's about 1,700 square feet. And we intended to use that because we're going to have fast casual dining. So we intended to use that for folks to be able to, carry out their drink or burger and sit out there on the patio if they want to get away from the noise inside. And will not be any, sit-down, full-service waiting on tables out there. But we did intend to use that space.
Okay. And do you also have a zip line in there?
We do, or we will.
How tall, is that a really tall building?
It is. Where the old printing presses used to be, that ceiling pushes 40 foot in height in that area.
Thank you.
So we're going to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like Ron's going to be your first customer.
Any other questions?
So I don't know if you've seen the documents that staff provided, but one of the issues in here has to do with parking. That, you say there's 358 existing spots, but based on the application, staff calculated that you might need as many as 577. Is that the correct number?
That's correct. So based on our analysis, the site plan is short for parking spaces.
Is there a plan to address that?
Yes, actually, I have the new site plan here, which takes us to a total of 589 spaces.
So there's plenty of room on the site. This issue can be addressed during their site plan review.
Okay.
They are providing additional parking that they'll be shown at the site plan. So it's just to make the applicant aware of any deficiencies that we see now.
I think the owner went to submitted his permit package for the site plan. If not last week, he was doing it this week.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, we have some people here, obviously, that want to speak for or against this, so if you'll just take a seat for a moment, we'll have
Alrighty,
them
thank
come
you.
up and speak. Whoever would like to come up first, just come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Linda Wenzel, 376 Detroit Way, Rockledge, Florida. Live right next door to the old Florida Today. We had the opportunity to talk to Kevin in the hall, so we answered. We had a total of about 18 questions, and he answered most of those. We did have a concern about security because there will be alcohol there, so we were wondering if they were going to have a security vehicle, and it will be till 11 o'clock on some nights. We also had a question, if this business doesn't go in and the variance goes through, can someone else come in? Because, I'm just going to use an example, we really don't want a strip club next door. Most of us don't. So anyway, we don't have a problem with most of the others because Kevin was kind enough to answer those questions. And we were concerned about the traffic, because Route 1, as you know, gets very busy along there. There's no light there. There's a light at the corner of Century Boulevard, but there's no light again for quite a while. So there's been quite a few accidents there, people trying to cut across to go north, or south wouldn't be an issue, but going north. So that would be a question, and the signage. So we didn't know if there was going to be, I don't know, some kind of a light or something to deal with that, because we have 417 units, and I know how sometimes when everybody's here for the season, not this year as much, but it gets kind of busy there. So we wanted to know about if this variance goes through and this company doesn't come in or lasts 3 to 6 months and then leaves, can anybody come in there on that variance for entertainment?
Okay.
That's our big question. You know, what does it include, and what does it mean for us in the neighborhood?
We'll get those questions answered for you when the applicant comes back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Would anybody else like to speak for or against this? All right, seeing none, I'll have the applicant come back up and he can address the questions.
To the question of security, the office tenant that is moving in to the old office space of Florida Today is AAR. Don't know a lot about them, but I do understand they are a government contractor, and there are a lot of specifications in their contract with the government. So I fully expect that they're going to have outside security around the clock. I don't know that for sure. I'm hoping they are, and that way I won't have to provide it. But to answer the question about are we going to open day one with outside mobile security, we do not intend to until, you know, the need arises that we have to. And we're going to be a family entertainment center. You know, we're beer and wine, we're not a full liquor bar. We hope that, and fully intend for this to be a family entertainment atmosphere where we don't need outside security, nor inside for that matter. I cannot speak to whether or not the conditional use permit would transfer to another tenant if our business failed a couple of years down the road and we subleased it to somebody else. I guess you guys would
Mr.
have to.
Chairman, let me interject. So the alcoholic on-site consumption is a conditional use. It's not a variance, so that runs with the land. So the second part of this application process is that the applicant would have to get a state license through that. And so that's the second part of it. So if they do not do that within 3 years, the CUP for the alcohol would go void. So there is a stipulation in that. But the CUP for the alcohol would run with the land. With that being said, typically strip clubs and bars need to have a full liquor, which is a 4 CUP license. So in order for that to happen, they would have to come back under our current process and ask for another conditional use that would allow for full liquor. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Did I answer all of them?
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
The proposed signage here, do you plan on having one of those light signs, like, you know, the lighted up billboards or anything like that? It's going to be glare, or it's going to be bright? Or?
The landlord is to provide us a monument. We would like to put an LED sign in there that we can program to do the things that we want to do as we change, different specials or whatever we're running. So that sign has not yet been developed. AAR has one on the south end of the property. The landlord's intent is to provide us a monument similar to that size, and then we will have the sign built that we need. So whether yes, there will be some lighting on that sign, but I can't say for sure right now, exactly how bright, or I haven't learned enough about that yet.
So you're going to be adding an additional sign other than the one that's there already?
Correct, because the one that's there, we're gonna primarily use the north entrance. That's our intent. Folks going south, that one sneaks up on you pretty quick, so it may get missed, especially if there's no sign there. It would, and they would have to go to the south entrance to come back around to us.
Okay.
So we need to put signage up there.
All right, any other questions? All right.
So staff, do they have to have a binding development plan along with it?
They do not.
Okay.
All right, what's the board's pleasure? Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure.
Make the motion, we accept it.
There you go. I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. All right, passes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have one last item, which is, nope. Nope, we're all set, right? All set.
That's it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Good job, Brian.
Ah, you could have sat here.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.